The crowning jewel of American aerospace engineering, the F-35 Lightning II stealth fighter, is currently facing unprecedented operational challenges that threaten to rewrite the history of modern aerial combat. As of March 20th, 2026, the atmosphere in the Middle East has become suffocatingly tense following a series of rapid-fire reports confirming that not just one, but a second F-35 has been struck by Iranian anti-aircraft fire. This marks a historic inflection point. The world's most advanced stealth platform, long considered an invisible ghost, has been touched by the very fire it was designed to evade. The escalation began with leaked footage purportedly captured by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) air defense units, showing their tracking systems successfully achieving a target lock on an F-35 silhouette high above the Iranian plateau. Shortly thereafter, US Central Command (CENTCOM) was forced to issue a guarded statement confirming that a fifth-generation fighter had performed an emergency landing at a regional airbase following a combat sortie over Iranian airspace. While American officials are cautiously investigating the incident and have yet to formally admit the damage was caused by enemy fire, major international outlets like CNN and Al Jazeera are pointing to a starker reality. The $100 million assassin of the skies was likely humbled by Tehran's integrated air defense network. Adding fuel to this strategic fire, a second report emerged detailing another F-35 struck over the Bandar Abbas province in southern Iran. This second incident has acted as a cold shower for the myth of invulnerability surrounding the Lightning II program. According to field reports, this multi-role fighter was forced to divert its course and make an emergency landing at Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, while in a damaged state. This is a profound shock to the global defense establishment. Since its combat debut in 2018, there has been no confirmed precedent of an F-35 being successfully engaged and damaged by enemy fire. Looking at the broader strategic picture, since the conflict intensified on February 28th, the price the US military is paying is growing at an alarming rate. Beyond the stealth fighters, the US is reported to have lost up to 12 MQ-9 Reaper drones, and 5 KC-135 Stratotankers have sustained damage during missile strikes on regional hubs. Perhaps most tragic was a rare friendly fire incident involving Kuwaiti aircraft that led to the loss of 3 American F-15s earlier this month. These equipment losses, coupled with 13 confirmed service member fatalities and hundreds of injuries, are exerting immense political pressure on the White House to demonstrate a clear path to victory. However, despite the loss of these billion-dollar assets, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth remains steadfast in echoing President Donald Trump's America First doctrine. The Pentagon claims to have struck over 7,000 targets inside Iranian territory, neutralizing dozens of midget submarines and mine-laying vessels. The ultimate objective remains unwavering: to annihilate Iran's mobile missile launchers, paralyze its defense industrial complex, and most critically, terminate Tehran's nuclear ambitions at any cost. With Washington declaring there is no fixed timeline for the conclusion of this campaign, the Middle East is sinking into a brutal war of attrition. On one side stands the world's leading stealth technology, now appearing increasingly fallible, and on the other, an Iranian air defense system proving far more lethal than Western intelligence anticipated. When $100 million jets begin falling or limping home with shrapnel scars, the geopolitical great game is no longer a mere tech demonstration. It is a life-and-death struggle with escalating risks. How did a $100 million ghost like the F-35, designed specifically to be invisible to radar, find itself in the crosshairs of Iranian gunners? The video released by the IRGC may not show a mid-air explosion, but the visual evidence of smoke trails and impact tremors confirms a harsh reality. Stealth is not invincibility. Military experts have long argued that no aircraft is truly invisible. The F-35 was designed with exotic geometric angles and a composite airframe to minimize radar cross-section, RCS, covered in a specialized radar-absorbent material, RAM paint. The goal is to make a massive fighter appear no larger than a sparrow on an enemy radar screen. However, this wizard's cloak has a fatal flaw: environmental sensitivity. In the extreme heat and humidity of the Middle East, this RAM coating can degrade or peel, inadvertently turning a fifth-generation stealth fighter into a brightly lit target for low-band surveillance systems. Yet, the true secret behind Iran's successful engagement likely lies not in radar, but in thermal physics. While the F-35 can hide its shape from radio waves, it cannot hide the massive heat signature generated by its powerful Pratt and Whitney F-135 engine. In the world of aerial hunting, this is known as the infrared signature. When facing modern infrared search and track, IRST, sensors, and high-definition thermal imaging, the F-35 becomes a wandering torch against the cold backdrop of the high-altitude atmosphere. Analysts from the war zone suggest that Iran has been brilliant in its restraint, avoiding the use of massive missile complexes like the S-300 or Bavar 373 for direct confrontation. Those systems, once they activate their active guidance radar, would be immediately detected by the F-35's warning systems and destroyed by anti-radiation missiles. Instead, Iranian air defense forces have employed a strategy of aerial guerrilla warfare. They have deployed highly mobile, low-altitude defense systems and man-portable air defense systems, MANPADS, meticulously camouflaged within the rugged terrain of Iran's mountain passes. These systems operate entirely in passive mode, meaning they emit no signals for the F-35 to detect. They simply look with thermal eyes. This is a lethal trap. The F-35 pilot has no idea they are being tracked. The footage of the F-35 cruising steadily without performing high-G evasive maneuvers or deploying flares before the impact proves that the world's most advanced warning systems were effectively blind to this silent method of attack. Iran's art of asymmetric warfare is also evident in their understanding of enemy behavior. To avoid long-range early warning radars, F-35 pilots often choose terrain masking, flying low through deep valleys and mounting shadows. They believe they are safe beneath the radar horizon, but in reality, they are flying directly into the kill zones of lone wolf ambush teams waiting below. A single trigger pulled from a hidden launcher in the brush can humble a $100 million jet with a missile that costs a mere fraction of a percent of its value. This lesson is not entirely new. It has been seen in Yemen and Ukraine, but the fact that it is being repeated against the F-35, the pinnacle of the US Air Force, has dealt a massive blow to Washington's technological pride. When the arrogance of stealth causes a lapse in the basic principles of ambush awareness and thermal management, the price is paid in the deep scars found on the airframes of the Lightning II Ghosts. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, President Donald Trump has revealed that he expressed his frustrations to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu regarding the bombing of one of Iran's largest offshore gas fields. This highlights a growing strategic rift between the US and Israel as they navigate the weakening of the Iranian regime. President Trump maintains his characteristic confidence, describing his relationship with Netanyahu as very well aligned, even joking that if he dislikes a particular move, the Israelis will stop. However, behind this veneer of camaraderie is a profound strategic fracture. The direct attack on the South Pass gas field exposed two diametrically opposed calculations. Israel is playing an all-in hand, believing that by destroying Iran's financial lung, the state will be forced into a total collapse. They call this a regime-ending strategy. Conversely, the US administration is breaking into a cold sweat, trying to prevent that exact scenario. Why? Because every time an energy facility burns, oil prices spike, bringing the ghost of inflation to haunt American voters and the stock market, the two metrics Trump cares about above all else. Washington's growing unease is reflected in increasingly desperate economic measures. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has already mentioned releasing more oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. More shockingly, there are talks of a temporary sanctions pause to allow 140 million barrels of Iranian oil currently sitting in offshore tankers to flood the market. It is a move dripping with irony, using the enemy's own oil to attack the enemy by depressing global prices. The US is signaling that it remains in control, but resorting to such tactics suggests that efforts to contain both the Iranian response and the global market are teetering on the edge of failure. On the military front, while Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth touts the 7,000 targets struck and promises the largest aerial destruction campaign in history, the reality on the ground tells a different story. The US has yet to achieve what is known as escalation dominance, the ability to make the opponent fear striking back. On the contrary, Iran's asymmetric reprisals against the energy infrastructure of its neighbors prove that Tehran is willing to engage in a collective suicide pact to drag the entire region down with it. Perhaps the most concerning development for Washington is the eroding support from its Gulf allies. After 3 weeks of enduring Iranian missile rain, these nations are losing patience and showing signs of wanting to take unilateral, retaliatory actions. The fact that the US is struggling to find willing partners for its maritime escort mission in the Strait of Hormuz is a stinging rebuke to the superpower's regional prestige. As the conflict enters this dangerous new phase, the world is watching to see if the American lightning can survive a storm it can no longer see.